And we are live. Welcome to the Essential Libertarians, giving you the tools for self-governance. I know I haven't done this in a while, so I'm excited to be back with our special guest, Jack Llyod, the Voluntarist. Go donate to his Voluntarist project so you can get the best comic books to promote liberty. Literally. And Eric July will be happy because he can read them and not have to see tokenized characters. And also have my returning co-host, the man, the next Jordan Peterson. I do mean.
Hello. I'm here.
Hello. What's up? What's going on? What's new?
Not too much.
Oh, nothing much. I'm working on this interesting video. Kareem, I wanted to talk to you about it more, but I'm working on this Yemen video.
Nice,
basically
yeah.
where I'm taking I don't want it to be any longer than 8 minutes. So I'm taking scenes from like different news clips and different stats, and from Dave Smith and from when he was on Rogan, from me, maybe Kareem if I can find them, because I know you've said stuff about Yemen. I just can't remember which episodes they were, and then I'm putting it all together and it's going to be, I think, a very good video. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, definitely Angela McArdle's doing the thing. She's like, since I guess everybody genders, neutral. She's the man. She was on Tim Pool. She did a really good job, I think. Some people are like, no, dominate the conversation. I'm like,
no,
not necessarily.
No.
You want to be a repeat player, and you want to have good time preference. And to me, I'm not looking to bust down someone's door and be like, you're all wrong and you're dumb. Even sometimes I do think that, but I don't think that's a good strategy going forward. So yeah, anything with Iraq's kind of what got me into being a libertarian when Ron Paul.
Really?
Ron Paul basically said, don't bomb people. And if you bomb people, they don't like it. And I'm like, I thought that was, to me, that's common sense. And I even told Dave Smith, he's like, I really like these ideas. And I'm like, I like them, but they almost seem common sense. Like, don't hurt other people if they don't hurt you. It's kind of like in every religious book and every moral thing that exists. So with that said, super excited for you guys here. Sorry for the late start. Had some technical issues, but we are going to get started right here. But before we do, if you want to keep the ideals of Murray Rothbard alive, if you want to keep all the hard work that Michael Heiss has done, putting hours and days, pouring his heart out in his life into this. We just took over the Libertarian Party. Go to the lpmisescaucus.com, put in your first name, last name, email address, phone number, state. If you'd like to be a delegate, click this box and be part of the revolution. Keep the dreams of Murray Rothbard, the legacy of all of these great Austrian economists alive. They'll do pretty good. So I will get into our first story. A lot of people have said that a medical procedure by the establishment, even if it, doesn't work as intended. First, they said, it's going to be great. It's going to prevent, 100% effective. Even though LASIK's been out, which I just got, it's 95% effective. Somehow, I don't even believe there's anything called 100% effective. If something exists, it has faults. Heisenberg principle. So, all right, it was 95% effective. Then they said, it'll prevent you from getting it. Oh, no, they still get it. Oh, okay, but it'll prevent things from being worse. And that I don't know how you exactly gauge, but whatever. But no one really, at least in the spheres outside of libertarianism and Alex Jones, really believed me when I said, there might be some bad consequences to this. Well, courtesy of Justin Pedini of the One Great Network with Mark Passio, who's more of a truther. I get this is an inflammatory title. I'm going to play it anyway. Just really.
Oh, was this the one I shared as well?
I think you also shared that.
Yeah, it is.
Dream that we had together with my leadership team when we started in 19. The first week we met in January of 19 in California and to set up the goals for the next 5 years. And one of them was by 2023 we will reduce the number of people in the world that cannot afford our medicines by 50%. I think today this dream is becoming reality.
Hey, you guys, I don't like normally going on.
So that was it. It was just really, really short clip. So Jack and Foe did a really good rap video on this where it has Kill Gates, who I'll give him credit. He had one good operating system, Windows 7. And it has him in the background with Fraud G and all those, and all the goofy people.
Oh, that classic picture.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, fine. You think I'm crazy? Listen to rap, and then Bad Wolf said it, and I'm trying to tell people, and they're just like, you listen to Alex Jones a lot. Fair point, I do. And then I was trying to tell people outside, look, they have negative intentions. I get it. He's not outright saying, oh, we want to, because they're not going to do that. They're not going to come outright and,
Well, I mean, Bill Gates did say if the medical, with medicines and vaccines, in that classic TED Talk, with medicines and vaccines that the population should be reduced by a certain degree. I think he said like 25% or something. Like, he literally said it. So I'm like, when you say that because of if medicines stay good and vaccines stay a certain way, the population will get reduced by 25%. Like, what do you mean by that? Now, then a lot of, let's just say the defenders and definitely the fact checkers say that by population reduction, what he's really talking about is control the population because of population density. And I'm like, still, like, how are we controlling the population? And why should anyone in this entire planet have the right to control the population? Because essentially you're taking up the authority of a godlike figure to where you get to decide if someone lives or dies, or if someone lives in a city or not. Like, people are autonomous individuals that sort themselves out, and the way that they sort themselves out usually are the ways that are best. You can't locate someone or put someone in a place that's going to make them any better off than they're going to put themselves. And this is what's been tried with federal subsidized housing, with certain ghettos. Like, even if you pay people to live in certain places, that does not mean they're going to be better off. And just because you, let's say, reduce the population, because there are negative effects, and I'm just saying, let's say hypothetically there are negative effects of larger populations and population density. Okay, fine, whatever. I'll take your statement. We'll act as it's true. Well, you don't have any idea or understanding of the ramifications that are going to come from reducing the population and what that will do, and if that is indeed worse than the problems that arise out of population being high.
Mm-hmm. Well, my thing is this. One, I don't think it's true that it's overpopulated. I've heard this before, and I've looked at, numeric things that the whole population could fit in the state of Texas. The problem is population density. You pack people in these cities, which, if you want to live in a city, I believe in voluntarism. Live in a city, but realize that it's very packed in. It's like do you want to be like a sardine in a can, or do you want to be a fish in an ocean? Not the best analogy, but that's kind of how I look at it. The problem is they're packing people in the cities, and psychopaths or people who are crazy control most of the resources. So because of that, you have what appears to be problems with population, but it's actually population density to me. And the thing I just wanted to get across is like, look, listen, the CEO of the actual company said that people he wanted to reduce by 50% people who couldn't afford their product. His words, not mine. And he's the one distributing a medical procedure that the establishment would like you to take. So being careful here, but I am saying that, look, you might want to reevaluate, especially when you hear about, this person, that person. What do they actually say behind closed doors at Davos, at the World Economic Forum, at Bilderberg and CFR? And kudos to Jack, and because I'm not that exciting, I just, get on camera and rant in like a more chill way. Alex Jones amps it up, but kudos to Jack and Foe. Check out their music video where they actually talk about this, and it's kind of cool. They have some raps and a good beat. And I still don't know exactly what you're saying. On Karen's on Facebook, say your child's well, I think. I don't know what that is. I'm not sure what the lyric was exactly, but
so you're talking about the Disobey song?
Yeah, the Disobey song.
We have a few songs to talk about, because there's Mask Order, Disobey, I Did Not Consent. Those all three cover topics, like pretty tangential to that. But Disobey obviously is like very tied to that stuff, and like actually talks about like Eco Health Alliance, and what they do and things like that. Yeah, and like the Karens on Facebook, they are
here it is. I've been looking for this goddamn fucking. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh. I thought you were looking at the video. The Karens on Facebook line. I had that blonde wig for. and they say it's just jobs. Wow. Because, the Karens on Facebook, when they had the shutdowns, all they were like, well, it's just a job. What's the big deal? It's like these people who are so out of touch with reality that's what actually allows people to pay for food and electricity and water and and everything else they need to survive. Like, oh, it's a big deal. But just shut down. It's just jobs, right?
Yeah. It won't hurt. Come on. We need to slow the spread. It's like, by slowing the spread, you're essentially destroying a generation of people. Because this is an interesting story that I don't really talk about a lot. I brung it up, but one of the important things psychologically in parenting that is imperative is from the ages of about 2 to 4. If within those ages there's not a proper amount of affection, discipline, and authority, the child's pretty much screwed forever. And all of the psychiatric literature is very clear that within those times, those are the 2 times which you will never get back. And if your kids are not nourished, if they're not protected, if they're not loved, they will have a hard time socializing. They'll be less able to socialize. They'll be more likely to get arrested. They'll be more in a category more likely to commit a crime, more likely to go to jail if they were not getting a certain amount of affection. And take Ted Kaczynski when he was an infant. When he was a toddler, very young, he had this abnormal disease that affected people around him and made people sick. So Ted Kaczynski, from around those time periods into even earlier, was in a closed off. You can think of those things that they put the babies in at the hospital, like the plastic things. You know what I'm talking about? Right. He was in one of those for 2.5 years. His parents never saw him. No one ever touched him. No one ever talked to him. No one ever spoke to him. The only time he was ever interacting with another individual was to give him medication, and they were never touching him. He was given food through a little hole. And then, of course, the MK Ultra experiments didn't help on top of that. But the point is that a lot of people don't understand that when it comes to parenting and stuff like that, the affection of not only your parents, but of also having like a support group around you is necessary. And think of all these kids in this time period who have not been socializing at school, who have not been talking to friends, whose parents are probably going to have to work extra, or they're, because I think about it like this. So either parents are going to stay home and collect unemployment and be with their kids all the time and watch their kids, or they're going to have to work and leave their kids alone with someone. Regardless, there's a drop off of interaction, and the interaction among their peer groups is what's most important. And we basically cut that off for 2 years, not to mention the 300% increase in childhood speech delays, which, I mean, none of this was unexpected. If you look at people who brought up the original, what was the original statement that came out against the lockdowns? It was a certain, there's a certain name for it. Anyways, a bunch of scientists. Say it again.
Barrington, Great
Barrington Declaration.
Yeah,
all these scientists and psychiatrists and psychologists, neurologists came together to talk to the Trump administration and talk to those scientists who were in the NIH and in all sectors of the government, and told them that these lockdowns will cause more harm. We must end them. And they were originally the ones who said we shouldn't do them in the first place. And they didn't listen to them. They didn't listen to those within the Great Barrington Declaration. And we're still paying the consequences for that, I believe.
Yeah, we are. Honestly, like, to me, when people, collectively get together, but they actually have a cause, like, you could call it America's Frontline Doctors, the Mises Caucus, whoever it is. And then they're trying to spread knowledge and there's nothing to gain. There's probably a good reason to listen to them, because I always go by incentives. What incentive do they have to lie to you? So that's a huge thing, especially with what we're doing to kids. And don't send them to a public indoctrination camp.
So this is something I wanted to point out, Kareem. When you mentioned population density, I've been literally thinking about this. What was the words exactly? I thought you were putting my screen up.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Anyways, I've been thinking about this for like at least, I don't know, maybe the last 7 podcasts. I heard it on a podcast by, I believe it was Andrew Hubbard. I believe, I could be wrong. I'm sorry. I can't remember. Someone who deals in neurochemistry. So, and I finally found the article, linking it up. So basically what was found is that those who live in cities, The average person has between 10 to 15 short-term memory items, like 10 to 14 things they can remember within a span of 30 minutes. Excuse me, actually, it's less than that. It's like actually 8 to 12 now that I think about it. For an adult, it's a little less, about half for kids. 8 to 12 short-term memory span. All right. So in cities, they found that those who lived in cities and went to work and drove and walked, they had around 3 to 4 items in their short-term memory. Their attention span was shorter on average, and they were less able to hold more complex things. So let me just read this real quick. So now scientists have begun to examine how the city affects the brain, and the results are chastising. Just being in an urban environment, they have found, impairs our basic mental processes. After spending a few minutes on a crowded city street, the brain is less able to hold things in memory and suffers from reduced self-control. While it's long been recognized that city life is exhausting, that's why Picasso left Paris, this new research suggests that cities actually dull our thinking, sometimes dramatically so. And I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, there's massive medical literature behind this in cities. So that's why I really think, like, where is a lot of this sort of ideological, like, indoctrination and ideas coming from? Like, where is it coming from? It's not coming from rural America. I'm not saying there's no liberals over there. I'm just saying this really parasitic, toxic wokeism. It's all coming from city urban liberals. And I think this has at least some part of why it is, because I think they are in a city, and I think they're always constantly in this dense population with other people. And it just so happens that a lot of a certain type of political people who believe a certain political ideology all live in these areas, right, in these cities. So it's constant confirmation bias and the loss of memory. I mean, they're just walking, talking zombies, in my opinion.
In a way, yeah. And that leads into the next story. Another reason to get out of the city too is not only will it affect some cognitive abilities, and yes, there's a higher degree of collectivism, which I get. There is collectivism amongst the Republicans. They're terrible too. But I think the closer people are, the more naturally collectivist they can become. That being said, a reason to get out of the city is it's not really that secure. Oh, but there's police everywhere. Yeah, but they don't do anything. And I want to know, like, who are the Republicans still backing the blue so I can show them this story. So pop them this link. I was checking this out. I think I saw this on Max Henry's feed, and I'm like, man, I got to report this story. I'm looking at KSAT officer. Husband of slain Uvalde teacher was detained, had gun taken away after trying to save life. So not only are the cops not doing anything, they always make things worse. That's why when, like, Lydia from Tim Pool was like, oh, I'm glad they did a good job, and Jack responded, look, here's how easy they can be manipulated, and they keep getting swatted again. I hope Tim Pool, I hope the Republicans who, like, are flying back the blue kind of get a wake-up call from this.
I think some of them have, to be quite
I really hope so. Texas DPS director Eva Morales, I hope I said that right, told husband she had been shot and was dying. Shocking testimony. Tuesday revealed more insight into abject failure of the response of Uvalde shooting that occurred May 24th. Texas Department of Public Safety Director Colonel Stephen McCraw revealed that the husband of the slain elementary teacher in Morales tried to save her but was barred from doing so. Ruben Ruz is a police officer from the school district who was on the scene, and the gunman entered the school and opened fire. She called Ruz and told him she had been shot and was dying. And what happened to him is he tried to move forward into the hallway. He was detained. They took his gun away from him and escorted him off the scene. And even worse, we have pictures of the Uvalde shooting emerge as the city hires lawyers to block evidence. So not only is the state inefficient or malevolent, depending on your view, they will, as George Carlin said, lie to protect this state, or vice versa. The state will lie to protect the police. It's a gang. It's not even a sophisticated gang. It's just a gang, and they play and they have rituals. And Larkin Rose is right. It's just a religion. If you get that aspect of this, this is just a corporation with a monopoly, then you'll be better off. So revealing the police were heavily armed with rifles and a ballistic shield, which they didn't pay for. They got it through theft dollars. 58 minutes, 58, while gunman Salvador Ramos continued his rampage. Despite entering the school just after 9 minutes, Ramos officers waited an hour. Bourla Border Patrol BORTAC agent ignored the police orders, and the police are undoubtedly one of the reasons Valdi and the police department hired a private law firm. I like that word, to prevent the release of basically all records. Now, to me, if police departments are hiring someone private, if the state hires someone private, it's not actually private. That's why I think that's an interesting word. And I like that even they use that there. You're not private if you're getting any help from the state. I think you could even argue if you're a hardcore ANCAP, I don't even go this hardcore. If you have LLC, you're not a private company anymore. And Paxton, who is, I believe, the chief office, will eventually rule the arguments have merit, determine if any public records are to be released. The letter makes clear, however, the city and its police department want to be exempt from releasing a wide variety of records, in part after being sued, in part because some of the records include highly embarrassing information. Yeah, you stayed out, you waited an hour, you could have done something. In part because some information is not legitimate concern to the public. I don't know, their kids died, I think it is. In part because the information reveals methods, techniques, and strategies for preventing and predicting crime, which it didn't do. In part because some of the information may cause or may regard emotional mental distress. Yeah, people died. In part because his response to shooting is being investigated by the Texas Rangers, FBI, and Uvalde, and 148 separate public record requests. So I got through that kind of fast, but 3 points are: one, the back the blue stuff needs to completely go away. You either have an electable sheriff, because that's an incentive, and that's actually constitutional. Not even ANCAP, Stan. I'm all for, if you have a sheriff that can be elected, you can elect him out if he's bad, or you scrap it and get something like threat management with Dale Brown, which is completely private, and he's had nobody die. Imagine that. The cities and the cops are just a gang. That's it. It's a gang with a bunch of badges. They pretend that there's something different about them and like your other, criminal gangs, but there isn't. It's just a monopoly, a corporation with a monopoly on force. And last but not least, I don't think it's a private law, completely private law firm if they're colluding with the state. And the fact is, I agree with Scott Horton. If these townspeople wanted to literally pull these cops out of their homes and, beat them, which I'm not advocating for any violence, but or sue them or take them to, whatever legal means, I completely 100% agree. This is ridiculous. Not only did they not help, not only did they keep getting in the way, but the ones who didn't do anything waited an hour. And I'm hoping people do wake up. I'm hoping Tim Pool, because I still watch his show, especially Angela was just on, check that one out. Larry Sharp crushed it. I hope he's getting the, hey, I've been swatted. Nothing's getting better. Why is it not getting better? They have a monopoly on security. And last but not least, if somebody wants to understand how it would work in a private market, not saying it'd work this way, Robert Murphy has a really great whiteboard illustration, Order Without Law, and he explains how it would be done. It's not the most exciting thing, but he's a great economist. So sorry, I went on a rant, really, really long rant there. So yeah, Jack or Dan, if you have any thoughts, sorry.
Yeah, in addition to your book that you mentioned, The Private Production of Defense by Hans Hermann Hoppe is another one in that genre. People, that they can learn about the...
What is it called again?
The Private Production of Defense. Gotcha. Is another book that talks about specifically, market defense and things like that. I talk about it too a little bit in my book too, Definitive Guide to Libertarian Voluntarism. But there's plenty of resources out there just talking about those incentives.
Yeah, and one thing it's really interesting to see is what it comes down to is you see how people act when there's an incentive, and you see how people act when there is an incentive. And to me, that's all that matters. I don't honestly believe that there is, if everything was private, you wouldn't have misconduct. Obviously, security guards mess up somewhere.
I mean, there still needs to be law enforcement. We're not saying that there shouldn't be laws and restrictions.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that the way that the particular sort of mechanisms by which law enforcement officers are existing in. The police departments are sort of smelling of bureaucracy, and I think most libertarians that I mean still like sheriffs. I mean, I don't think we have any problem with local sheriffs.
I know.
I like local sheriffs. For me, I think it has to do
Fuck 'em.
with individuals within a community, within a small community. You have to know your police officers. We can argue about whether they should be elected, but there should be a voluntary exchange and a voluntary understanding of who these people are. It shouldn't just be like, okay, everyone that monitors your community, you don't have any idea who they are. You don't get to vote them in. You don't get to say whether they're good or bad. They just are in this department, and not to mention the sort of lack of accountability. Now, what about you, Kareem? Are you for the sort of police immunity that they have, or do you think that that's not good?
No, I actually agree with Amash. Get rid of qualified immunity. Get rid of mandatory minimums. Get rid of victimless crimes. And here's the thing. If you guys are familiar with threat management, Anarchy in Detroit was actually a good. Reasons like sometimes they're hit or miss. Sometimes they like promoting drag queen stuff and gas tax, which I'm like, Nick. I feel like Nick Gillespie like sometimes drinks too much and then does an article, but he's also a very nice guy and he interviewed me. So sometimes he knocks it out of the park. I will give him that. He had an awesome video with Michael Heiss. So I'm not gonna, and he did some good coverage of the Mises Caucus.
What if it's a drag queen sheriff? Would that be okay?
It'd be funny as hell.
What's for it? Drag queen sheriff. That we're good.
Yeah, you can join threat management with Dale Brown. But here's the thing. I fundamentally come to the thing. If they have an incentive, if something bad happens, if you do something bad, you will act in accordance. If you have no incentive, which the government doesn't, then you're going to, I know personally, if I have no incentive to do anything good, like let's just say Mises Caucus was the #1 thing in the world and no one could touch me, I'll be like, I don't want to be, I don't want to spread the message. I don't want to, do all this libertarian stuff. I just want to work out then and play video games and play my guitar because I have a monopoly. I don't care. I'm going to do whatever. Oh, we have all this tactical gear, but we want to wait an hour. If there is an incentive, whether it's local police or security, I think it'd be better. Now, we can argue, is a local sheriff better than a private security guard? And I think that, you can find different discrepancies. I don't have all the answers of what Ancapistan will look like. But I think I have some pretty good insight on this book I'm going to get. This is a really good book, The Definitive Guide to Libertarian Voluntarism. So I'm going to add that to my cart. And then...
Hey, you got a lot in your cart, man.
Yeah, I do.
That's a lot of books.
What is that?
Enough stuff to block out EMF, so I'm just going to knock out everything here.
I just hope it's safe because I hope we don't scroll down and it's like a double-sided dildo or something like that.
Yeah.
He's like,
I suggest anyone who wants to understand Uvalde and why we're having problems with police. Anyone who really wants to understand it, I suggest you take a look at the Supreme Court case of 1981, Warren v. District of Columbia, Warren, D.C. And that case ruled that police are under no obligation to protect you. No obligation at all.
Yeah.
They don't have any constitutional obligation to protect you.
The Supreme Court literally said that. Yes. Think about how messed up this is. This is why monopolies are bad. The Supreme Court, to me, I don't believe in. I believe your city council or your village elder should be like, bruh, we like Sharia law here. We like English common law. We like, tic-tac-toe law that just says don't beat up people and don't throw watermelon. Whatever customary law system you have, I would opt for little towns saying these are our small town values or these are our city values. Don't break these. Here's our private values, and we go from there. The Supreme Court's literally saying we have a service, but that service is not directly to help you, but you have to pay with your theft dollars that we're going to print out of thin air to, literally fund the service that you don't want.
Yeah, because it's like, who funds the police departments? Yeah. Who pays for all that stuff?
So Hans Hermann Hoppe does a good job. Robert Murphy does an excellent job, in my opinion, of explaining it. And if you want another explanation, I'm pretty sure most people are pissed off. If you're not pissed off about Uvalde, I don't know what would get you mad. I mean, granted, yeah, Yemen pisses me off more, but
I like that book cover, by the way, man. Who made that?
Kids. Igor. I worked on him with him on that cover, so that was fun.
Yeah, dang, put me in contact with him because that's pretty good, man. I'm trying to figure out my book cover too because I don't really know anything about making one.
And he has a lot of resources here, so he's actually looking through and he's done his research. I just picked this up today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I'm pretty excited. Just got 2 more quick stories because I think they're pretty crazy. I know, I get it. I'm the one who said, like, after Reno, after I was done making like jokes about, okay, fine. I can make jokes about like the other libertarians who oppose us, but I'm not trying to out-recruit them. I'm trying to out-recruit the World Economic Forum because whether people know it or not, they have thousands of members. Me and Danny have deep dived in this.
Yes.
Klaus Schwab literally said to people, we penetrate the cabinet, so it's a monopoly. You have a monopoly on, how do you get a monopoly on force? You get a bunch of people who are wealthy and powerful, and you manipulate them into positions you want. So, but they don't only exist in politics. People like Justin Trudeau, I'm like, I get that. But he has people in tech. He has people in medicine. And one thing is I have a lot of libertarians and people, my crypto boys are like, we love the meta. I'm like, bruh, that's a trap. This came out of DARPA or some weird thing. So Meta literally announces the World Economic Forum will have a leadership role in the metaverse. So I know there's tons of people who love the metaverse. There's software engineers who are like, metaverse, man, woo. And I'm like, no, run. Why do I say run? I'm not saying like, hey, the metaverse couldn't have any good functions in a free market. I'm not saying that. But the World Economic Forum's multi-stakeholder initiative, which to me is code for rich people, elites are going to decide what you want, what you do, what you think, what you see, any information you get to hear. That's a multi-stakeholder initiative. It just sounds nice. It's bureaucratic language for I'm going to control everything. President of Global Affairs, former British Deputy Minister Nick Clegg, has announced building the metaverse requires work across the industry to inform best practices and governance principles. Like, you shared something that we don't like. Oh, okay. Ban him. That's governance principles. And ensure these technologies are built responsibly. Like, make sure no libertarians or liberty Republicans, not DeSantis, are on here. World Economic Forum's new multi-stakeholder initiative announced today they will play a leadership role in that work. Oh, like a monopoly? Defining and building the metaverse wants to focus on producing governance principles for it, but also something defined as societal value creation. Sounds like a social credit score. The initiative's first key area is supposed to determine safe, interpretable, inclusive technology. I don't agree with Jordan Peterson and everything he says. I think Daniel Betro will eventually, his work will, but when someone says inclusivity, diversity, and equity, it's a good idea to like say, okay, thanks, and then run. Get in your car, electric car, get on a bicycle.
Well, equity especially, because equity means something very specific, and when it's used in a manner that's not that highly specific way, you should point fingers, because equity was a term used in Cambodia under Pol Pot, in China under Mao, and the Soviet Union under Stalin, and under what's his name there? The guy during Kennedy. I always forget this one. Khrushchev, under Khrushchev as well.
Yes.
So the term equity has been used in a lot, and not just communist countries, right? It was used in some German form of it was used in, under Hitler and under his regime. It's been used in a lot of these totalitarian regimes to sort of manipulate the masses into this sort of phony, forced compassion to make the populace go along with this thing because it's being sold off as a thing that's going to help people. It's pure, it's humanitarian. You're going to give more to people by giving up to the state. And they do it in a very, very psychological manner to where they want to make you be happy about your tyranny. Because if you're giving something away under the intention or belief that you're giving something to someone else, you think you're being compassionate. But in reality is that thing that you're giving to someone else is simply more power and more ability for the state to restrict you. You're not really helping anyone out. You're under the impression that you are, but the government wants you to think that you are, because as long as you think that you are, you'll keep giving. You'll keep paying taxes. You'll keep voting for the same politicians. You'll keep supporting the same government, and you'll keep propping up and expanding the tyrannical state until you get to one of those totalitarian states we talked about. Compassion is a weapon that has been used for thousands of years to enslave people, and the fact that people don't wake up to this yet, it blows me, because when people say, well, I hear that so-and-so is racist, or I hear that policy is racist, or it'll be a policy that really is racist, and they're all for that. I'm like, have you looked into that thoroughly, or are you just simply re-espousing talking points you heard from some either TikToker or political pundit? Like, how far have you really looked into the issue? Because, I mean, it's not like, I'm not going to say racism is rare, because I don't have the statistical data at my fingertips to even make a statement like that. But what I'm going to say is, if you're going to allege such a harmful, terrible thing, if you're going to allege that in some form or another in this society that a certain minority or identity are being suppressed from having jobs or maintaining power, you need evidence for that. And it seems as though these people who always talk about inclusivity and equity and diversity, when they're questioned about where are we seeing the lack thereof, they always are immune to the evidence and act as though it's axiomatic. And you should know. You should just know there's systemic racism. And I'm like, what is that? And where is it happening? And they never give you any clear-cut answers. It's always like, you should know. You should already know this. And it's so not only repugnant, but arrogant the way they express their ideas, because they're never, ever, they don't even care about having evidence. They just care about being morally virtuous. And if you ever disagree or cross the sort of ideological line that they agree with, they look at you and they're like, they have this moral sort of reprehensible look on their face when they see that someone else doesn't agree with what they do, or dare call their ideas into question, which aren't really ideas. If you really think about them, they're products that were moved from some other person who probably moved those products from someone else. The ideas are like, they're basically like gifts handed down from a YouTuber or a politician or a pundit or a family member who simply told them something. They did absolutely no research to examine if that thing they were told was true. They accepted it without question, and now they're telling other people that thing that they were told.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like repeat. And that's to me what like a lot of these people are. Biden, elbow macaroni in France, Rainbow Boy Justin, just, hey, tell me what to say. Hi, like, okay, this is what you will say. I talked to Nathan Rothschild. He's not in the media, but I am. And this is what you say. Okay, yeah. I'm your little puppet on a string. It's just half of these people, including Trump, to me, they're like the monkey that you twist up, and they're like, except they actually can pass laws with older followers that will come and coerce you. But according to Nick Clegg, as you said, Danny, the metaverse will represent a force for inclusivity and equity. There's that word. It mustn't be shaped by tech companies on their own. We don't like freedom. It needs to be developed openly with a spirit of cooperation between the private sector, lawmakers, civil society, academia, and people who use these technologies. So basically, we need corporatism. That he's
essentially
the private, because it's not the private sector if it's working with civil society and academia. What's going to happen is you're going to get these Marxist professors or these socialist professors that say, okay, censor this. We can't say that there's, this about gender. You can't make a joke. You can't say anything. So I'm not saying the metaverse couldn't ever be used for anything good, but I will say,
I'm excited for the remote drag shows while I eat my crickets. That's all.
In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, the metaverse is not a new thing. So Mark Zuckerberg was talking about virtual reality and augmented reality around 7 years ago, and everyone was looking at, what do you mean by that? No one understood. He was the one building these sort of innocuous and these sort of things, and he had already been planning this for a while. The virtual reality thing was something that originally came out of the 60s and stuff like that. It dates back really far, but the point is, is this thing has been worked on for a while. Let's say in this form, in its modern sense, maybe a decade. It's been worked on by big tech companies. I think it's their attempt to redo the internet, because what they did with the internet was they failed at restricting it. And those of you who are older than me know this better than me, right? I only know this from like secondhand and doing research, but the original internet, if you remember, it was crazy. And even YouTube originally, these things were crazy and wild, right? And then eventually the elites and the big tech makers started to look, oh my God, they're forming groups and they're coming out against the establishment. And I mean, Ron Paul, Alex Jones, look at these guys who got really big off the internet, Joe Rogan, all these people who have gotten really big off the original internet, and there was no censorship, and maybe some, but very, very little. What did they do? They said, oh, we got to put a cap on that. So I think they're trying to get a new internet, because in this current internet, yes, there's censorship, but there's also a constant fight back and a constant alternative economy. So they're still getting competition. They were never able to just lock it down completely. So what they're doing is, let's build this new internet. I'm not saying it is the internet, but hypothetically, let's build this virtual reality and let's lock it up from the jump and make it impossible for any sort of anti-establishment ideas to come up. Let's get everyone in there and let's lock everyone up. Let's put everyone in the same confirmation bias bubbles, and let's remove any chance of anyone seeing any diverse opinions. And not only that, let's make sure everyone's at home. And people, you can actually have legitimate jobs in the metaverse, like where they literally pay you. They literally pay you to work in the metaverse, like tons of jobs where you make a wage. So let's put people in their homes. Let's make sure they make money off of jobs that they're not actually doing. They're doing by sitting on the couch in their face. They have no meaning, no purpose, no physical fitness. They get even more unhealthy. And then on top of that,
in the metaverse now.
And then on top of that, of course,
the frogs are already gay there. That's
listen. Of course, the metaverse jobs don't pay that well. So what do you need to do if the metaverse jobs don't pay that well? Well, you need a supplemental income, and people are going to be, it's going to be too many robots and AIs for people to work. So what are they going to do? Oh, you need a universal basic income. That way people can work in the metaverse and also get money from the government and subsist. So then the government are going to take in and essentially run the metaverse along with elite corporatists, and then sort of incentivize universal basic income and dumb down the population even more and get everyone so apathetic and lazy, even more than it is today, where there will never be revolution, because people will be on something that doesn't even exist. And not to mention the really dark, twisted stuff that's going on here. And the CIA worked with our original thing that, like, there's a book on this where the CIA worked with, I don't know if it was Pornhub, one of the first original porn companies on the internet, to put certain porn on there. But anyway,
a porn historian to help us.
Yeah,
we're on the porn historian.
Yeah,
he guys got cut because the government's like, he's bringing up too many real facts, so we got to cut him right now. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh man, they cut my co-host. All right, well, I was just gonna do the last one. I'll let you go, Jack. I just want to say, hey, since the cops failed at Uvalde, what does someone actually trying to change the world look like? What do real heroes look like? They don't all wear capes. I watch We Are Change every day, so this was a big one for me. Here's what a real hero looks like. John Hurley. Boom. I didn't talk about this for a while. It was on, so I kind of missed this, as it was going through the news cycle again. So I'm a little late, but it has been 1 year since John Hurley saved countless lives when he used his own firearm to stop a shooter in Arvada, Colorado. Moments later, he was shot by a responding police officer. Okay. So I just want to let people know that, hey, maybe the best thing is just, even beyond your local sheriff or anything, maybe the best thing is just people who are armed with guns and things like that. And also, Fo does a really cool thing on Facebook where she just shows, like, hey, that today, I think it's every day, someone with a gun actually stopped a shooting. So sometimes your neighbors are the best deterrent in crime if they are armed and if they're willing to respond. So that's our show. Albert Bourla actually said what he was thinking for once. So I'll give, like, the evil, insane globalist credit. At least they're coming out and actually saying it, as Justin Pedini said. Police, if you still are running that thin blue line flag, or you're flying it, or you have it on the back of your truck next to your Gadsden flag, which I don't get, I'll never understand, but whatever, do you. You might want to rethink that, especially if this incident in Texas. Now, I know you're going to ask, well, I don't know what could ever replace it, because yes, you were told it has to be a monopoly. It doesn't have to be a monopoly. Hans Hermann Hoppe explains it. Dr. Robert Murphy explains it. Or you could check out Jack's book, and he explains it. And I just bought it on stream. Woo. So I'm excited to actually go ahead and read it. I can get a cool picture like Max. And then last but not least, watch out for the metaverse, because I review a lot of NFTs. I hear about the metaverse all the time, every time I'm in tech. Maybe it's not as benign as you think it is. It'll get you to care about your avatar more than your actual life, and then you'll own nothing and you'll like it because you haven't noticed you didn't actually own any physical stuff. And last but not least, rest in peace, John Hurley. That is pretty much our show. Wanted to keep it quick and get all the good topics out there. And we had awesome one with my co-host and special guest, Jack. Jack, thank you for being on here.
It was my pleasure. It was quite the wild ride. I thought the sheriff's thing was a lot of fun, because, as he even brought up later, how the police don't have a duty to protect you, even your elected sheriff. And there's a situation that made me think of not too long ago. There was a sheriff, not here precisely where I'm at, but a bit over, who was running against another sheriff, and that sheriff used their department's resources to go after the person who's running against them. They actually followed his cars. They use the Stingray that like captures your cell phone data. So that they use that stuff against him. So it was very interesting to hear about that situation, because it was an example of how even the elected sheriff, right, can be a crony who uses the resources that he gets by force. Because again, it's from taxes that get paid, so he gets that money no matter what. And to use that against people who would try to oust him, who are more libertarian. So it's a very tough thing. That's why, as you said, incentives do matter, and having as many diversified incentives against corruption is very important.
Yeah, actually, that's why Somalia actually worked. It's not that warlords one day are like, man, I read Rothbard, I watched Ron Paul, and
that'd be cool.
Yeah, it would be awesome. And I saw Mark Passio, and I believe in natural law, and let's find out, what the axiom of action. They just said, hey, based on if you kill people in my tribe, you have to pay money. And people are like, I don't want to pay money. So is that like the most moral thing? No. But it did decrease violence.
Right.
And to me, sheriffs are going to do bad things. People are going to, even in ANCAP stand, people might go after each other for stuff. I never ever paint the, perfect picture of utopia. The only people who do that are communists, and then they always get the opposite. What I will say is like a quote I really like: anarchy is no guarantee that some people will not rob, steal and kill people. Statism is a guarantee that some will. Some definitely will. So yeah, an elective sheriff could be bad. Maybe you want to go for private security like threat management, but an elective sheriff can be good. It depends if they're getting paid with theft dollars, because if they're getting theft dollars, no matter what, they're not going to care. That's my thing on it, but I'm not like an expert on it. You know a little bit more. Hans is a expert, and Robert Murphy has some good ideas. So we will see. So guys, that is our show. You can find me on the Essential Libertarians on YouTube. What you want to do is go to their YouTubes, type in the Essential Libertarians, and then you will see my live thing. Here is what it looks like, just for people who are going.
Do it.
The Essential Libertarians. Go check it out. Yes, the name was inspired and helped from my original co-host, Mike Higgins, Max Henry. And guys, check out the lpmisescaucus.com. Keep the legacy of Murray Rothbard going. The Ron Paul Revolution 2.0, and all the hard work that Michael Heiss has put into everything. You can go to lpmisescaucus.com, put in your first, last name, email address, phone number, state, and click I would like to become a delegate. So ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm your host, Kareem, with my co-host, Daniel Betro, and special guest, Jack Llyod. Check out the Voluntaries project he also has going, as well as his YouTube things and his podcast as well, Zero State, where he's interviewed some really, really amazing libertarians. I got the pleasure of being on there, as well as the creator of the Mises Caucus, Michael Heiss. He's also had some really, really, influential libertarians on there as well. So go check that out. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode.
Thanks so much.